If they wanted to teach you, they would, but they won't. So I will. It has been revealed today that the CEOs of the top 100 companies in the UK have officially had their pay increase to the highest level on record.
55% of businesses in the UK say they're going to raise prices in the next 3 months, which is up from 39%, which we saw last year.
Hi all. So Tesco say that they have to raise their prices because of a national insurance increase. But let's not forget, Tesco's made billions in profit of us last year.
Because the supermarkets are paying the farmers next to no money for their products and still charging consumers huge amounts of money.
I don't get why it's so normalised to work a full-time job, not be able to afford a house, barely afford groceries, too scared to turn on the heating in the middle of a f***ing winter.
That what's driving inflation is corporate profits. It's profiteering from energy companies, from big monopolistic organizations that are putting up prices because they can, basically, because they have a stranglehold over their markets.
BP's profits more than doubled in the first quarter of this year. £5 billion in the first quarter.
These changes are simply being used as an excuse so big companies can cut jobs, cut costs in order to increase and safeguard their profit margins.
I really hate to be the bearer of bad news, but unfortunately, the system is working exactly as it's intended, because it's intended to help the richest people in society. It's never supposed to help the poorest people in society.
This is about, if you give all the power, all the economic power, to a tiny group of people, then everybody else needs to live where they f***ing live. Otherwise, how do you get a fucking job?
We can create our own parallel system that puts people before profit, because a small town in Spain has literally shown us how.
You're welcome back to Brit Rants. We do not sugarcoat anything because life is already heavy with expenses. Are you mining causes for inflation, wars, supply chains, or the weather? The real culprit has been greed. Corporate greed indeed. While profits are soaring, your wallet is bleeding dry. They have gone to the extent of hallmarking it, inflation, as if it were a natural calamity. This is not an economic crisis, it's a con game. Your bills didn't go up by accident. They went up because someone wanted record profits, and you paid for it. Today, we are talking about greedy inflation. So, if you are sick of being taken for a ride, hit that subscribe button. Join the revolution and speak the truth. Let's call a spade a spade.
Have this idea that the reason we have inflation is that everyone is just being paid so much money and it's just this amazing time for poor working class people who are on high salaries. Of course, that's absurd. We actually know now from economic studies that what's driving inflation is corporate profits. It's profiteering from energy companies, from big monopolistic organizations that are putting up prices because they can, basically, because they have a stranglehold over their markets. And they're able to do that. It's not workers driving inflation. You can easily give nurses, give doctors a pay rise and then say we're going to do a bigger windfall tax on the energy companies or tax profits that have gone up over the course of the cost of living crisis and actually keep inflation low.
Hi all. So Tesco say that they have to raise their prices because of a national insurance increase. But let's not forget, Tesco's made billions in profit of us last year alone. And now they're asking us to pay more to cover basic benefits for their workers. Benefits that should already be covered by those huge profits. It wasn't too long ago when you would go into a Tesco's and get warmly greeted by one of their greeter staff. And pretty much on every other aisle, you could find staff ready to help. And then you had the friendly cashiers that always asked if you needed help packing your bags. And if you did, they'd send another member of staff to pack your bags for you. What was absolutely wonderful service, especially if you had children. These same members of staff would make careers because they were good places to work for. You got nice bonuses or shares within the company. And you even got an hour paid lunch break. Now many of the stores have shifted to self-service checkouts, reducing direct human interaction. We have to buy our own bags, do our own scanning, and pack it all ourselves. And if you do need any help, you'll often find a member of staff that's usually overworked anyway. All that cost cutting only boosted their profits. We've lost the human touch while their executives pocket the gain. Tesco's employs over 300,000 people in the UK. While they've announced pay increases, many employees still rely on government assistance to make ends meet. This includes universal credits and food banks. And that means that taxpayers are indirectly subsidising Tesco's workforce, allowing the company to maintain their huge profit. Instead of absorbing costs like the national insurance increase, Tesco choose to raise their prices, impacting customers and employees alike. Shouldn't a company with such significant profits invest more in its workforce and community? It's time to question these practices. Should we as a customer and taxpayers continue to bear the burden while Tesco's profits soar? And next time they tell you every little helps, it does. It helps their profits go up.
55% of businesses in the UK say they're going to raise prices in the next 3 months, which is up from 39%, which we saw last year. Now, the government in the October budget increased national insurance contributions for employers, which is going to raise £25 billion. And that is essentially what a lot of businesses are saying their concerns are now. 63% of businesses are saying that their main concern is rising taxes. But it's not just rising taxes, it's obviously rising prices. Businesses are getting rising prices. Consumers are seeing rising prices. And for businesses, that means they're going to, cut back on investment. Inflation is continuing to squeeze both consumers and companies. And the Bank of England is caught in this balancing act trying to manage financial markets because they expect a big interest rate cut this year. But on the other side, there's inflationary pressures. So they have to keep interest rates relatively high. There's conflict in the Middle East, which contributes to, those worries as well. So they have to manage expectations. So what does that mean for us as consumers? Essentially, we're being told to anticipate or at least expect higher prices and potentially fewer job opportunities if businesses are cutting back on investment, because businesses are massively struggling to navigate this whole environment. A lot of eyes will now be on the government and the Bank of England to see if they can balance things and get things back to a good point while also addressing inflation. So I'd like to know, what are your thoughts? What do you think needs to be done now and how should the government respond? And if you don't know me, my name's Joss and I help Gen Z understand business and economics to maximise their future.
Some of the biggest employers in the UK are saying that the minimum wage increase and the change to employers' national insurance are going to lead to job losses. But the truth is, job cuts are completely avoidable. And far too often, these changes are simply being used as an excuse so big companies can cut jobs, cut costs in order to increase and safeguard their profit margins. Take Tesco, a mega corporation who've been really vocal about the minimum wage rise and the hike to national insurance for employers. While they might complain and say that it's hurting their company, research from Unite the Union shows that last year, even with the change to employers' national insurance, they would have still made £2.5 billion in profit. Companies' profits are being prioritised over the jobs and conditions of workers, and it's vital that people join a trade union, both to smash through the lies from these companies and to safeguard their jobs.
Economists will tell you the reason London is expensive now is because people prefer big cities now. And it's true that a lot of big cities have become unaffordable, okay? So why is Oxford fucking the second least affordable place in the country? Why is Verbier in the fucking Swiss Alps gone through the fucking roof? Why are the Hamptons expensive, Why is Newcastle, which is a big city, why is Glasgow, which is a big city, why have they not become expensive? The reason is rich people don't fucking live in Newcastle, but they do live in fucking Oxford. This is not about big city, small city. This is about, if you give all the power, all the economic power to a tiny group of people, then everybody else needs to live where they fucking live. Otherwise, how do you get a fucking job? If you have a good distribution, everyone is a worker, everyone is a consumer. So I can live with a group of people. We're all workers, we're all consumers. We all work for each other. We all consume off each other. If you give all the power to those guys, they don't live in Newcastle. They never go to Newcastle. They don't study in Newcastle. Then what do the people in Newcastle do for fucking work? I'll say it a million times. Distribution matters. And I think, you need to cure you need to cure the cause. If you keep trying to afford things you can't afford, because you're poor, because all the wealth went to the rich, and you never do anything about the underlying. It's like we're playing chess, and I let you take my pieces one at a time, and then say, okay, well, how do I win? You need to deal with the structural problem. And this is why, I'll say it a million times, if you deal with inequality, you can make things better. If you don't deal with inequality, you'll make things worse. And people can point and call me a communist as much as they fucking like, right? I make millions of pounds betting on this, all right? That doesn't sound very fucking communist to me, all right? I'm not here because I'm a good person. I'm here because I'm a good fucking economist, and I don't want this fucking country I grew up in to go down the fucking toilet. It's as simple as that.
I was thinking about capitalism the other day and just how it is at the core of all my problems that I have in my life. Like, all of the issues, majority of the issues that I have is because of capitalism. Like, I don't get why it's so normalised to work a full-time job, not be able to afford a house, barely afford groceries, too scared to turn on the heating in the middle of a fucking winter, like unable to save, consistently freaking fatigued because all you're doing is living your life around work. Like, fair enough if we got something out of it, but we don't get anything out of it. And there's no support there's barely any support when you have kids too. You got to figure that out, that shit all by yourself. Everything's about money, and it's just money, 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 money. And it's exhausting because that's all the world cares about. It's all about money. Every single thing. We're chasing like infinite growth on finite resources. It doesn't even make logical fucking sense. None of it makes any fucking sense. And it's just like literally the cancer of the world. It's just cancer.
We live in a wealthy country. I mean, let's face it, we're not living in a country that's poor. We're one of the wealthiest countries in the world. And over the period of COVID, the wealthy have got wealthier. Hugely. I mean, these are not just my numbers. Go to the ONS, you'll see it. Stacks of figures where the rich will get richer and richer.
Yeah,
and how do they do that? They do that at the expense of the poorer.
I think that's part of the reason for the youth being upset, because they're no silly. You don't have to be, highly educated to know when you're being shafted.
Yeah.
And they look at the people that run society today and they realise these people don't care for us one iota. Why should we care for them and their institutions? F them. That's basically it.
If they wanted to teach you, they would, but they won't. So I will. It has been revealed today that the CEOs of the top 100 companies in the UK have officially had their pay increase to the highest level on record. The FTSE 100, which stands for the Financial Times Stock Exchange 100 Index, are the 100 largest companies listed on the London Stock Exchange. And it is their bosses who are now paid more than 120 times more than the average full-time worker in the UK, which really makes you think, huh? Because while I understand that there is a level of education you can get which allows you to understand and take on more complex specialist tasks, how do we rationalize paying those singular people running companies more than 120 times what their staff will get paid while their staff are struggling to keep a roof over their head and fighting for salary increases to match inflation? Which is why I will never understand the argument people make about not wanting to tax the rich because they will leave the UK. Maybe if they leave, they'll be replaced by people with some humanity. Analysis by the High Pay Centre showed that the median pay for a FTSE 100 chief executive increased from £4.1 million in 2022 to £4.19 million in 2023. And that is the median pay, meaning if you lined up all the executive salaries of all 100 companies in a line from highest paid to lowest paid and pick the salary in the middle. And in reality, £4.19 million a year is practically nothing when you compare it to Pascal Soriot, the chief executive of AstraZeneca, the pharmaceutical company. He, for the second year running, is the highest paid FTSE 100 executive and has had his salary increase from 15.3 million in 2022 to 16.85 million in 2023, which actually isn't even as much as it was meant to be. AstraZeneca actually went through a shareholder rebellion earlier in 2023 after announcing plans to increase Soriot's pay to 18.7 million for the year. So instead, everyone settled on a modest 16.85 million. And these are the bosses who have control over how much their staff are paid. And we aren't talking about a few employees. The FTSE 100 companies employ almost 5 million people and generate profits of over £300 billion, which to me makes it very clear why they don't teach you to negotiate your salaries when you're in school. Because if everyone understood these 3 principles for negotiating their salaries, then maybe everyone could get a bigger piece of the pie. Firstly, discussions about pay at every level are negotiations. You don't have to just accept what you're offered, especially if you believe that you should be getting more. It might be uncomfortable, but if you don't ask, you just won't get. That being said, you're going to have to do your research though to negotiate from a position of strength, understand what you can get in your position with your experience and credentials, and push for it. Secondly, while it might sound daunting, be prepared to leave and take on a new role somewhere else. Most people who achieve pay rises and promotions do so by changing the company that they're working for. Sometimes to move up you have to move on. All of this blind loyalty to companies who quite literally eat off of your hard work without fair payment is done with. We go where we're valued. Now that doesn't mean leave before you secured a new job. That's just stupid. And thirdly, understand that in most cases, it would be more expensive for your employer to hire someone new than give you a pay rise. So as long as you are someone who works hard and is an asset to your team, push for what's yours. But my question to you is £16.85 million a year salary too much for one person, or would you not mind if they paid a substantial amount in tax? Let me know in the comments.
In the past year, you probably paid more in taxes than Starbucks paid in corporation tax in the UK. You see, in the past year, they reported a loss of about £35 million. But why? That's only after they paid their parent company £40 million in royalties and licensing fees, which pushed Starbucks UK, despite millions of pounds in sales, into loss-making territory. Now, what that effectively means is the amount of money that we lost out on in terms of taxpayers, in terms of corporation tax, which, for example, say it was even just £40 million, could pay for thousands of additional doctors or nurses. But despite that, we lost out on that, even as companies like Starbucks are able to make millions and billions for their shareholders through the stocks that they own. And despite all that, the UK government has said that it is not necessarily interested in increasing additional taxes on wealth. Instead, we seem to have a situation where people like Rishi Sunak, who between 2021 and 2022 made about £2 million, can pay a lower effective tax rate than nurses, who are often struggling and quitting the NHS at record numbers, being overworked, doing 12-hour shifts back to back, just to not even be able to, in many cases, make ends meet or support their families. But what do you think? Is there a better way forward? If you'd like to read more about this, then see the caption down below and follow Novo for much more.
What the flippin' heck is going on in the UK? Don't mind the slick back hair. We need a full fact.
I really hate to be the bearer of bad news, but unfortunately, the system is working exactly as it's intended, because it's intended to help the richest people in society. It's never supposed to help the poorest people in society. That's why by any metric that you want to have a look, the rich will always be winning. Doesn't matter if we're in a recession, the rich will make money. Doesn't matter if we're in a cost of living crisis, the rich will always make money. That's the reason why CEO pay, bonuses and dividends always exceeds inflation every single time, every single year, no matter what the situation is. That's why every quarter, multi-billion pound companies are able to post record-breaking profits, even though the rest of us are in a cost of living crisis and we're told that we need to band together, we're in it together, we need to work together. That's not the case for the rich, and that's not the way that the system is set up to work. Now, I don't know how many of you guys remember the 2008 financial crash, but I remember that. All of a sudden, everywhere on the news, we were all talking about how great socialism is and how much we need to bail out all these banks with the taxpayer money. All these multi-billion pound industries need our money because they've made a mistake and we need to save them. Where's all that money gone? Did you ever get any of that back? Did we ever get, as taxpayers, did we get any shares of any of these banks? Are we sharing any of these profits that these guys have made? No, because the system's never been set up like that. When the rich people are in trouble, the news, the media, the politicians, everybody will band together and work out some way to help them. But when the rest of us are all in the shit, no one cares. And they're not supposed to. The system is not set up for people like us. It's only set up for the people at the top.
BlackRock, Brookfield Capital, Norwegian Pension Fund, Canadian Pension Fund, whoever you want to name, these big asset management companies, these big pension funds, they're not evil by nature, but the structure in which they're forced to operate in is broken. Money is like water. It searches and it seeps into all the cracks. And what are those cracks? Those cracks are where value is. And so when you have asset managers who are looking to create value from their capital, create money from the investment, they seek out all the cracks. And unfortunately, as the market gets more competitive, as the market has more and more competition, as it gets more and more crowded, that value that they find is the food sitting on your plate. It's the little bit of scraps that for so long the individual could benefit from and sustain themselves from. And eventually, because there's no value anywhere else in the economy, it's the food on your plate that those big institutions have to come after. Namely, where we're seeing this right now is in our homes. The final piece, commercial housing is done, retail is done, industrial warehouses are done, storage companies are done, student housing is done. The final piece are our homes.
Last year, it took UK billionaires about 28 days just to make £1 billion. And that's how much experts believe it would cost for free school meals to be rolled out to all children on universal credit. At the moment, many children are not on that free school meal tier, which means despite their families and themselves being in poverty, they're unable to access nutritious, healthy meals that give them the support and energy and fuel to get through the day. In fact, it's expected that because of Rachel Reeves' policies, that there might be as many as 50,000 extra children in poverty by the end of this parliament. Never mind the fact that we're already at record levels of child poverty, the same that has not been seen, if not for the past 20 years. But the good news is that people are working on this issue and they're trying to tackle it. And if you'd like to find out what you could do to help those people, then see the caption down below. Follow and share for much more from Nova.
As you're well aware, the new energy price cap rates came in Tuesday of this week. Electricity prices, gas and electricity rising by 10% in England, Scotland and Wales. People's bills are going up. My understanding is that as you were trying to become an administration, in what you were outlining, you said you were going to bring people's bills down.
Yeah, and you know why bills went up, Charlie, on October the 1st? Because we're in the grip of international gas markets controlled by petrostates and dictators. And when geopolitical instability happens, gas markets react, and there's nothing we can do as a government, but there is something we can do. And that's what this government was elected to do, which is to drive to clean, homegrown energy we control. That's why we've overturned the onshore wind ban, consented more solar in less than 3 months than the last government did in 14 years, had the most successful renewable auction in history. We are in a hurry to get us energy independence. And this is all part of the government's plan. See, if you take these two things together, we say we have renewable energy absolutely where we can. We're going to have the maximum renewable energy where we can, carbon capture where we can't. But the only way we get back control of our energy prices is with the clean energy superpower mission that this government was elected to deliver and is delivering.
When's my bill coming down?
Well, what we've said is that by 2030, bills will come down. But let me say this to you, Charlie. Every solar panel we put up, every wind turbine we construct, every piece of grid we construct, and that's controversial for some people, but this government believes we've got to do it. Every time we do that, we get back control of our energy. That's what it's all about. You see, the old argument for clean energy was just a climate change argument. The new argument is, yes, a climate change argument, but it's also an energy security argument. It's a control argument because solar, wind, that's not controlled by what Putin does or what happens in the Middle East. That is controlled here at home. And that is what we're all about. And that is what we're driving towards.
BP's profits more than doubled in the first quarter of this year. £5 billion in the first quarter. All because of the war in Ukraine. This is some shit, right? While the rest of us are living in a cost of living crisis, with the autumn set to be horrendous, by the way. If they seriously put prices up in the autumn, how do they fucking sleep at night? Record profits and still putting our prices up. That amount of money is unnecessary. We need a windfall tax. But surprisingly, Boris is dead against that. Even though BP's head exec said that such a tax would not put him off investing. Because he's making so much goddamn money. Something needs to change here because this is not okay.
We can create our own parallel system that puts people before profit because a small town in Spain has literally shown us how. Now, please push past your impulses and watch this video to the end because every single home in the UK needs to know about this. Now, in 1956, in the Basque region of Spain, there was an aftermath of a civil war and World War II, and the people of Mondragon knew that the government wasn't coming to save them because they were struggling. Now, a priest and 6 workers decided to do something about it, and they started the town's first worker-owned business. Fast forward 40 years, there's a network now of worker-owned businesses that employs over 70,000 people who are worker owners of the business, and it's like a network of autonomous businesses that come together for consolidation of power. and to almost to govern themselves, because they have their own bank, they have a university, they have community programs, they have housing benefits, they have private pensions. Do you see where I'm going with this? They also have their own healthcare system. And all of this is funded by the profits that would normally be extracted into offshore tax havens under a normal business model. So why don't we, here in the UK, why don't we do this? All of us. We have the opportunity here that they didn't have in Mondragon. We have so much infrastructure and talent that we can tap into to support and to create worker-owned businesses or consumer-owned businesses that reinvest profits back into people, back into communities, and back into infrastructure. And this would essentially enable us to govern ourselves so that we're less dependent on government, we're less dependent on the establishment for our essential needs, and we can manage our own affairs. This is a powerful concept that is proven that we can implement today without a hostile takeover, because we can have a revolution without pew-pews, without hostility. We just need a culture of cooperation here in the UK. That's what this is all about. This is what this movement that I'm trying to promote is all about. So if that resonates with you, please do follow, check out my website, join my email list, especially the email list, because it means that this goes beyond social media. TikTok doesn't own this movement. It's owned by us. And that's what exactly this is about. It's about ownership. It's about accountability, and it's about sovereignty.
This is a message for Keir Starmer. You said you want to put money in the pockets of the British people. I have a recommendation for you. Recently, you increased the inheritance tax on farmers. So I started investigating how farms work. And I realized that the true problem for farmers are supermarkets, because supermarkets have all the control. Capitalism has failed us in this respect, because the supermarkets are paying the farmers next to no money for their products and still charging consumers huge amounts of money. Here's an example. Milk. Farmers get between 34 and 39 pence per litre of milk. Supermarkets sell that litre of milk for £1.30. Where does the 96 pence go? To the supermarket. Imagine this. A farmer's cost of a litre of milk was set by the government. The farmers can then only charge 20% above that. So for example, if it was 34 pence a litre of milk, the farmer could charge 47 pence a litre of milk. Farmers are actually making money now. So that means they can pay their inheritance tax. Tick. The supermarket can only put 20% on what they pay the farmers. That means instead of charging the customer £1.30, they can only charge 57 pence per litre of milk. That means the consumer halves their milk budget every month. Imagine we did this on everything that was produced in the UK. Milk, eggs, cheese, vegetables, everything that we can produce in this country, we did that on. Not only would people buy more British produce, and not only would our farmers have to farm more, but we could halve our food budget every month simply by regulating the profits of these capitalistic supermarkets and allowing the people of the UK to have more money to spend, which will increase our GDP, which will be a win-win all around. Just stick that one in your notebook. That's for free.
Hi everyone. I'm standing on Dyke Road outside the co-op, and what you see behind me won't be here for much longer. The co-op has made a decision to evict both Latina Cafe and us, Seven Cellars, in order to expand their supermarket. After years of serving the local community, we're both being forced to close our doors, effectively making two local independent businesses homeless. If you care about local community, local business and keeping bright and vibrant, please share this story. Let the co-op know that this matters. We love our neighbourhood and we would love to stay. We love our customers and we believe that there's room for everybody, independents and supermarkets.
When was the first one, do you think? It was the first time that we realised, together I'm talking now, that you could pick off a fairly hefty question and throw open the phone lines, and with a little bit of luck and a little bit of confidence, end up with massively increased insights into what was going on in the world. What was the first thing that happened with? I can't remember. I don't want to sort of crow or anything, but when you start getting the kind of calls to the program that other radio stations would have to book in advance. I mean, it happens now in quite a few areas, doesn't it, on our mornings together, but someone will ring in and they might even be someone who has been booked in advance by a producer on other programs or other radio stations. And when we get it right, when you and me get it right in the morning, that prompts people who do this stuff for a living to get involved. I can't remember, actually, when that started to happen, but I still derive enormous amounts of pleasure and pride from it when we get those calls. I sit there with my notebook, learning on all sorts of subjects, all sorts of issues. And Fergal actually is one of them, isn't he? Fergal Sharkey has on occasion paid us the compliment of ringing in rather than waiting to be contacted by a producer to book him to contribute. And of course he speaks for water. It began because of his passion for chalk stream trout fishing. Did you know that? He was an early alarm, if you like, for the state of our waterways because of the impact that the broader issues were having upon the relatively niche business of fishing in chalk streams. There's a rather good Fergal Sharkey full disclosure, I should add, as well. I mean, a fascinating man. He's led sort of 2 or 3 different fascinating lives, all of which, of course, come under discussion in that interview. I just found myself thinking today, have we ever done it with water? Have we done it with planning? Have we ever really got to the bottom of the simple-ish question of how the hell such an almighty mess? Test and trace was a good one, Paul. You're absolutely right. How the hell we have got into such an almighty mess? It is objectively astounding, right? It's objectively incredible. I'm going to remind you, and I've done it on a couple of occasions in the past, of the amounts of money taken out of water companies since Margaret Thatcher presided over their privatisation. I presume it was Margaret Thatcher. I should probably double check. But since water companies were privatised, and they're not going to be nationalised because, well, the logic is who would put money into a business, the investment that is needed, if they weren't going to make a profit? To which I'd have thought the answer would be a government that can redirect all so-called profits into infrastructure and into the actual but I don't know. I'm a bearer of very little brain when it comes to that sort of thing, and possibly things aren't as straightforward as sometimes we like to believe. So we are now witnessing the release.
They raised these prices just in case. And hello, they just never lowered them again. They shaved their staff, downsized the product, put up the fees, and called it adjusting to the market. But the real adjustment is in your standard of living, straight down to the ground. While you are choosing between heater and food, CEOs are making millions of dollars on bonuses for making your life harder. This is not inflation. This is organized greed, and they'll keep doing it until enough of us raise our voices. Comment below. Which aspect of life has undergone its harshest hit in this greed crisis? Is it the supermarket, lights, basic needs? And if you are done always being the one who pays for everything? Hit that subscribe button and stand with us here at Brit Rants. We aren't afraid to name names, expose the system, and fight for those who need it the most. Because until we start calling it out, they'll continue getting away with it.